It is 6 days after Christmas, and I'm still pretty upset that I don't have a Kenny Bell supercharger and an E85 kit underneath the Christmas tree. Santa, you failed me once more ever since I found out you were fake. So I don't know who's failing me, but this has got to stop, man. I am a broken child with broken heart with broken dreams. Anyways, besides the broken dreams and the broken heart, I have a broken Hellcat. No surprise, we try to mod it and we try to do all the fun stuff to it. Unfortunately, you know, stuff just doesn't go our way sometimes. It's not really broken, I just need to put everything back together. But with a broken RAM 47 REs, you know, they're terrible. So I got a broken Hellcat and a broken RAM, which means all the Mopars in my collection are currently down for the count. This does not represent my brand in any way, shape, and form, but I am not surprised either. So I figured while the Hellcat was down, I'd make a review about what it's like to own a Hellcat after a couple of years owning it. I believed I've owned my Hellcat for 3 years. So what do I own? I own a 2016 Dodge Hellcat Charger. It is a, I want to call base model Hellcat, which, you know, it's kind of weird to say base model, but it's not the red eye, it's not the super stock. I want to give this quick disclaimer. It's not really a disclaimer, but I wanted to say that I am very blessed and I am very happy and fortunate to own this car. By no means am I gatekeeping the vehicle. So the first time I ever heard about a Hellcat, I was 15 years old. This was in 2015, and I remember being at my friend's carne asada. So we were standing there and we were talking about cars, and, you know, we were kind of going back and forth. And he said, "Hey, did you hear that Dodge pushed out a car that makes 707 horsepower?" Which was mind-numbing to me. At the time, I was driving Nissan hardbody. The thing made like 75 horsepower downhill with the wind blowing in the right direction. So this is nothing to write home about. But, you know, I thought the thing was pretty freaking fast, and I couldn't imagine driving anything with about 300 horsepower, much less double that. Like it just blew my mind. And the first thing that I thought about was that this is going to be one of the craziest things ever. Because if you think about it, we're living in the current golden era, like the true golden era of muscle cars. Yes, I am not going to knock down the boomers and say that the 68 through 72 era of muscle cars was not one of the most gorgeous and amazing muscle car eras. But you do have to agree that the things that are getting pushed out right now would probably make people wet themselves back in the day, especially now since we actually have this thing called traction. I will agree that the 60s, let's say mid 60s to early 70s cars were probably the most beautiful things that ever glanced this earth. The 70 Charger, masterpiece, Picasso himself, you know, not even Da Vinci could have even thought about something this beautiful, right? But he done did it. Chrysler, shout out to you back in the 70s, making that beautiful thing. Besides the point, I remember thinking we are going to have another golden era of the muscle car. I am excited because I am going to get to live it, man. It's great. You know, we get to see fast cars, we get to hear loud things and noises and a lot of smells that make you nauseous, but you force yourself to like it because you're a car guy and you don't want to be the guy that doesn't like the smell of burnouts because they kind of remind you of a Home Depot hot dog. I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about a hypothetical friend. Anyways, what do I have done to my good old Kizzy? No Kizzy. Here's a list of mods that I have done to mine. First one is I did a catch can and then I did a diff brace. Why did I decide to go this way? Well, because I wanted to increase the life of my vehicle. Hellcats are very abused, let's be honest. If you had a Hellcat, what would you be doing in it? And it's not the speed limit, I'll tell you that much. Burnouts, yes. Over the speed limit, yes. Smashing on the go juice pedal, absolutely. Smashing on the brake pedal when you see a popo hiding behind a bridge, absolutely. So these things are gonna be abused, battered, and beat in every direction. I think I said beat twice. I figured that the best thing that I could do is try to increase the life of this thing before it even starts its life with me. I bought my Hellcat with 4,000 original miles. So I knew that I kind of had the homework of kind of increasing the life of this thing. So not only giving it regular oil changes, but doing stuff that is going to keep it happy. Adding a diff brace. What does a diff brace do? It essentially just bolts down the brace, the differential, a lot more, so you don't twist it with all the torque and with all the horses that you're pushing down and putting down on the ground. If you're picking up what I'm putting down, these things are going to twist them off, and you don't need to twist it off. You know, get yourself a diff brace, keep that differential happy in the same spot that the factory wants it to be, where you would want it to be, because if you have a differential out of the vehicle, then you're having a hard time getting it places. Catch count. Catch the vaporized oil don't put gunk back into your valves. Shout out to the N54 guys if they know all about the walnut blast and you know, the crummy valves and whatnot. Those are first things I started with, and I also recommend those highly. After that, I ended up going with a leg maker intake. So why a leg maker intake? It looks freaking cool. That's the only reason. I'm pretty sure the stock box makes more horsepower than the leg maker does to a certain degree, but it makes the coolest whooshy sounds and the whining sounds. And dude, you can be like at 10% load on the leg maker, and the thing cries like a newborn baby. Like, this thing is amazing. I have high flow cat pipes. Sure, that words are good. EPA, yes. Um, I ended up adding an incognito lower. The reason why I went with an incognito lower over an ATI 10% was because I have not yet fully committed to unlocking my ECU and getting all that stuff done to it. Incognito advertises itself as a pulley where you can just slap it on, add 2 pounds of boost, and not fuck around too much with that tune. If you know the Hellcat, we'll be able to manage it on a stock tune, which is a very nice thing. More power, more boost, no tuning. That sounds great. It's more money you're saving into the pockets that are cheaper, right? I also ended up adding blower spacers to the supercharger. What are the blower spacers? I want to say they're about a 1/2 inch plastic spacer that replaces the gasket where the supercharger sits on the block itself. So what do these do? Not only do they add a little bit of boost, they separate the supercharger from laying on the hot block, at which point once you pull it off, you add a heat shield to the bottom of the supercharger. What this does is it adds an extra layer of insulation or a separation between the block and the supercharger to give you lower temperatures that you're pushing into your motor. You have colder air, which means more condensed air, which means more fuel, which means more power, which means more smiley people, right? So you want to kind of keep that sucker cool, or as cool as you can, and it makes the Hellcat a whole lot happier. Other thing is that these gaskets from the factory, at the gasket right here. Okay, thank you. These gaskets from the factory, they are notorious for blowing out and kind of seeping oil into the intake portion of the runners on the heads. It's not the best thing to kind of push oil into the place where it shouldn't be going. It's bad enough you got blow by, if you have blow by, but you know, just keep everything happy, keep it sealed, keep it in the same spot. You don't want things going out of places they shouldn't be. Last thing that I have yet to add is a Be Woody pin kit. Why do you want to pin your crank? Do your own research, but this is what I've gathered from these mods, is that from the factory, Hellcats are very torquey, they are very powerful, and what can happen is that the crank can spin individually from the pulley. This meaning that everything that is accessory driven and the supercharger itself will stay in the same spot while your pistons are moving up and down and doing their things and the boosty boy is boosting hard. You really don't want that to happen. That's a recipe for disaster. Blown motor, possibly. Sad time, 100%. You don't want to spin this guy. Spinning ain't winning. It never is, especially not in the case of a crankcase. You're going to be drilling a hole between the crank and the pulley itself, and then you're going to be adding a small dowel pin that fits into that space that you just drilled into. Bonus points if you add 2 of them. Keep that sucker in its spot. Keep the Hellcat happy. Stop shaking my camera. Keep the Hellcat happy and keep yourself happy. Okay, so let's hit some pros of owning a Hellcat in general. I'm just going to open up the gates for this one. The pros of owning a Hellcat. First one is that it is a very fun vehicle. There is no shortage of fun. There is no shortage of a good time. What I mean is that, there's 700 horses. Not only can you run it, but when you don't run it, you have the feeling and the satisfaction of knowing what you can do. It's kind of like being Mike Tyson in a Chuck E. Cheese. Like, he looks at everybody in that place, including the parents, and says, I can whoop anybody's ass here, but I'm not going to, because like, I am the most powerful one here. That's kind of what it feels like to drive a Hellcat, and it's fun. It's a blast. Speaking of which, that's another pro. It is very fast. Understandably that there's 1,000 horsepower GTRs and Lamborghinis and, you know, your mom's 350Z that you added 3 turbos to and whatnot. Yeah, sure, okay, whatever. But from the factory, let's talk about what it does. Even if you don't like the Hellcat, you have to admit that it's a vast vehicle. Me personally thinking, I love the way that things look. That is a big plus to me. The way that the Charger looks is amazing. I think they nailed it. Unfortunately, it is not very close to the roots of the 70s Charger, which, you know, I don't think anybody or anything is ever going to create something as beautiful as a 70 Charger, but they are very good looking. The bumpers, the aggressive lines that they have, the wide body that it has. I'm not talking about the flares that Dodge just decided to staple onto the side of the car. I'm talking about like fat lines that it has. I remember the first time I was driving this thing down traffic, I looked in my side view mirror and all I could see was booty, like just the fender kind of sticking out. It took a while for me to get used to, but I just think these cars were done correctly. They look great. They just have their own presence for sure. Chargers in specific, they have a lot of trunk space. I have moved a lot of car parts in a Charger. I have moved parts for my E30. I've moved parts for the Charger. I've moved parts for my Volvo. This thing has space in the back. I've fit 2 bucket seats. I've fit two 315 45 R20 Mickey Thompsons for the Hellcat. The thing has space. It is a good grocery hauler. You can fit people in the back and you can haul children, ass, and groceries all in one go. What else do you want? I've also added a full set of wheels into this trunk. They were 17-inch wheels for my E30. I threw those guys in the back, laid down the seat, called it a day. It has 4 doors. It's convenient to take places and to take people and to do things. It's cool. You know, you have space if you want to take the homies. Occasionally they're fun. Occasionally they don't stink. So you can put them in the back seat. That's cool. It's a very, very, very comfortable car to drive. I don't know as much as about the Challenger as I do about the Charger, but I am assuming they are both very comfortable to take road trips in and to drive around. Like these things come with a couch as a seat that puts American Furniture Warehouse to shame. It really does, man. I don't think there's a recliner as comfortable as one of these Dodge seats. They are absolutely heavy, yes, but they blow breeze up your when there's a hot day. They're heated. They hug you. It's like a hug that you never got from your dad. One of my favorite things about the Hellcat is that the mods are very rewarding. Like once you do a couple of mods, you can actually feel the difference. It's not one of those things where the butt dyno is just kind of like, you know, yeah, kind of, you know, yeah, like maybe if I went a little bit higher on the rev range, and maybe if I did this, I could feel the power. No, the Hellcat right away will let you know that it likes it. So what are the cons to owning a Hellcat? The first one is that it is very, very, very expensive out of the gate. It's pretty obvious. You're paying 70 grand for a plasticky Charger. What's expensive about a Hellcat? Maintenance. First things first. This goes for all Hemis, but in the Hellcat specifically, you need to get not 8, not 10, but 16 spark plugs. And God forbid you get anything lower than OEM, which I believe is an NGK. I don't know the part number off the top of my head. But when you're doing maintenance to these things, you have to replace 16 spark plugs, not 8, even though, like, why? No idea. But you have to save up money. You go through brakes pretty quick, obviously, because you have to slow this boat down from 120 down to 15 whenever you see a cop in a school zone. You know, you're trying to impress the kids. I understand. You did a sick burnout. You did 120. Now you gotta slow down before the sheriff nails you. There are also kind of pricey cars to pay monthly. There's some people that have immaculate credit that didn't buy these things during COVID or post-COVID. You know, lucky you guys, you bought them in 2018 before poop hit the fan, and you have a $500 payment a month for a Hellcat, which is absolutely great. But during these times, these guys are a lot more expensive. Dealership markups are very unforgiving. They hold grudges. And if you're buying one at this point in time, I would wait until something collapses. Something's about to burst, and I hope it's the car market that bursts down and you can buy a Hellcat for a high five and a really warm hug. Insurance. Insurance is another one of my favorite topics to talk about. Not really, but I have to talk about it because it's expensive and it ruins my life consistently. I mean, it's needless to say insurance companies know what they are insuring. There's a lot of companies that don't want to insure a Hellcat. Depending even on your age, it's going to make it a whole lot harder. Me being a 25, how old am I? 24, 25-year-old with that fancy Smith certification you get for being a truck driver, proving that you're a safe driver. They're still unforgiving with me, man. These insurances are no joke. And the last portion of it, and this is a very obvious one, these things are gas guzzlers. And yeah, it's no duh. I am pretty sure somebody said no duh. I heard you saying it. But you know, they make all the fun noises. They're loud. They are aggressive. They go through gas, man. They go through gas like I go through tacos. There's no way going around it. It's just the way of life. But you know, you got to pay to play. These are just kind of the consequences of the things. Here come the big things. One of the biggest things about having a Hellcat, and one of the biggest cons, is that they are easy to steal. A bored third grader with a computer and common knowledge of the web, deep web, or not even that much, can break into these things and they can steal them. They are the most stolen car right now, which is extremely unfortunate because I love my car. I want to drive it around, but I can't out of fear that somebody's going to steal it. Where am I going and how visible is going to be my car? This, you know, if it's going to be in a parking lot 15, 20 feet away from me in a window, sure, I'll take it. If I'm going to Walmart to buy groceries and be in for 2 hours, I don't know what's going on around me. I don't know if there's people around. I don't know if there's people with ill intent. I can't see them. I don't feel comfortable, which is a big con. You know, it really stinks going places and not being comfortable with your vehicle hanging outside. Another con, and this is kind of a obvious one, there's not a lot of leg room for these things. You can do occasional pulls on the highway, you know, you could get it up to 80, maybe 100 if you're feeling really ballsy, but there's not enough room and there's not enough space for you to run a Hellcat on the street. Obviously, obey the laws and do the rules and, you know, stay in drugs, whatever the kids are saying nowadays, but there's just, it's such a fun car. You want to race it, you want to run it. Don't be dumb about it. Don't make other people pay for your decisions, right? You know, you rear-end a family van and there you go, now you have to pay for a bunch of medical bills. You know, it's just not very possible to see what the Hellcat can truly do until you put it on a track or a long distance track, whatever the case may be, which really stinks because not everybody can afford to go to the track consistently. More cons, I know I'm dragging this one out. It's a lot of power to handle. You can't just simply hop over from a 300 horsepower vehicle to jumping over to the Hellcat. You have to kind of warm up to these things because if you don't take it serious, it's not going to take you serious. The first thing that I learned about this car is that it likes to get up and go, very much so. But if you give her the beans all of a sudden and you think that you're very capable because you've been driving cars for the last 15 years, this thing is going to kick out and it's going to show you who the real daddy is in this situation. And there's nothing you can do but just clench the seat with your butt cheeks. At least they are very comfortable and just tag along for the ride. You have to respect these things. You have to get to meet them. You have to mingle and you get to negotiate the power and the way that you do things. It's almost like selling your soul to a demon, get it? But it's kind of the way that you have to treat this thing. And I'm being very serious that if you don't take this car serious, it is going to make you regret that choice. Last one is that the interior is very basic. Yes, me personally, I really like the red Alcantara that I have on my seats. I really enjoy the steering wheel. But other than that, you get the same interior option as every other Charger that's available. And the thing that really stinks about that is that just because you bought a Hellcat doesn't mean you get a better interior. And it just kind of is like, well, you know, I was kind of hoping to get something nicer on the inside if you're paying such a hefty price tag for the thing. But nope, it's a Dodge. Every Dodge is created equally on the inside, at least in the interior, for the most part. And you kind of have to deal with it, man. You're buying a Dodge.